the simple fact that you're eating garbage, your DNA has been tampered with and shortened. That's another thing, we'll get into that in a second. So what has happened is they came to the planet to get this gold because they would turn it into this fine powder whereby they remove all of the metallic properties. And this is one of the things that, if you look in the Bible, when Moses came down off the mountain and he saw them with that golden calf, he was upset. He melted the golden calf and then he fed it to them. I think they call it manna, or another word for it is Muff Cuts. And Muff Cuts mean, what is it? But it's a fine white powder and it's very, very powerful, monoatomic gold. And he fed it to them. So again, this monoatomic gold has been around for quite some time, and it has the power to restructure your cells. Okay, so what ended up happening is the Anunnaki, the Igigi, revolted. They revolted and they were like, it's too hot, we're not doing this no more, we're ready to stop. And then they kidnapped one of the Anunnaki. All right, so at this point, this is when Enki says, look, I got an idea. And remember, Enki has knowledge of how to structure DNA. And Enlil, which is the younger brother, but he was in charge. Enlil didn't have knowledge of this stuff. And he really, when it comes to the humans, he didn't want the humans created in the first place. I'll go into that in a second. But what happened is Enki came up with this idea. He said, look, there's another being on the planet. And if I mix our DNA with their DNA, then we can create a being that can do the work for us. Because we just need them to have the hands so they could, handle the tools. And we need them to have the knowledge so that we can give instructions on what to do and they will be able to follow it. Okay, so he tells this idea to Enlil and Anu, who was back on Nibiru. Enlil was very much against the idea. Why? Enlil says, that's not a good idea. We're not supposed to be creating slaves. And Inki said, no, they're not going to be slaves. We're just going to make them in our image because we need work to be done. We don't have a choice. We're trying to save the planet. The Igigi are revolting. We got to do this. So I need to create a being so that we can get this gold mined. So they call Anu, and Anu is listening to the whole argument. And Enlil is like, we shouldn't do this because we're not supposed to be creating slaves. We're going to get in trouble with the universe. We're going to get in trouble with the universe. No, Dad, listen to me. This is Enki talking. Listen to me. We can do this. See, all I need to do is just put a little bit of our DNA into these other beings, and then we're going to be able to get them to do what we need to do. And then we can, we don't have to worry about the Igigi. So after hearing the arguments, Anu says, can you do it, Enki? Are you sure you can do it? Enki says, yeah, Dad, I got it. I can do it. Okay. So then they get into creating these beings. They go into talking about how the original beings, some of them, they weren't intelligent enough. They couldn't speak. They talked about how some of them had fur, because what they were trying to do is create this concoction and plant it into another animal or being. And they weren't coming out the way that they wanted these beings to come out. And some of them were being born with their heart on the outside of the body. They weren't holding their bodily fluids. There's all kind of issues were going on as they were trying to create this being that they needed in order to mine this gold. So Enki starts to realize, okay, we need a woman in here. We need a female because it's something we're not doing right. And so this is when they brought in Ninmah. And who's the main people who were doing this? It was Enki and his son, Ningujita. Y'all know of him as Thoth, Thoth. But that was Enki's son, Ningujita. And so they brought in Ninmah. And she began to do her work, and they got closer and closer. And then she says, okay, here's the deal. One of the Anunnaki need to give birth to this being. Because what they would do is take a cell, sperm cell, and they put it in a concoction, and then they put it into another animal. Ninmah came in and she said, what we need to do, this is what we need to do. We need to have a being that can take the topography of this planet. So what we need to do is the concoction needs to be made up of elements of this planet so that the beings of this planet can handle this topography. And we're going to take a seed and put it in that concoction, and then we need to put that egg or that concoction into an Anunnaki female. And so Enki says to her, well, who gonna do that? Nobody gonna volunteer to have this creature? And then I said, I'll do it. I'll have it. I'll give birth to it. And so you'll see some of the hieroglyphics of an Anunnaki female, and she's holding a baby, and it's like, what is it? And it really looks like a girl. I'm not going into that right now. It looks like a girl. That was the first one she gave birth to. I'm not going into that, because we know that anytime man gets their hand on some kind of documentation, that story is going to be changed. So I'm just saying what she was holding up looked like a girl. But they tell us it's a boy, that's fine. We'll pretend like we're going with this story. Okay, so she gives birth to this first human, and they describe this human as a dark red being that didn't have hair. They talked about how, okay, it's got smooth skin, it's not furry, all right? So, and you can go and read the book yourself. Thank you for the love.